Hello and welcome to Sound Heal Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Brown, and thanks so much for joining me as we explore sound therapy, sound healing, using sound for health and wellness and related fields. I hope everyone is doing well, managing the best that they can during this challenging year, holding strong, holding your heart space open and powerful, and investing your time in things like learning. And I thought there was much to be learned from our podcast guest today. I was really lucky to meet Elian Zach at the Gong Summit in July of 2019. And though I didn't have much chance to speak with her, I did feel this energy, this sense of empowerment, and that she's very thoughtful and very much invested in learning and expanding. So it was really fun to speak with Elian. She is the co-founder of the Womb Center in New York, which is a multi-sensory center for sound, yoga, and breath work. So I really enjoyed this discussion with her about her background in theater, acting, writing, what led her to find yoga, to become a yoga teacher, and her own spiritual explorations and explorations of the nature of consciousness. We talk about the effects of listening, harmonics, overtones, and what sound does to our consciousness, and as well as consciousness expanding practices within sound, yoga, and specific breathing techniques, and also the beauty of vocal toning. So I thought that Elian absolutely was very reflective and well articulated and has so much to offer in her own thought process and experiences that she shares with us. This episode is sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa located in Sarasota, Florida. The Om Shop has a beautiful showroom of sound healing instruments, vibrational medicine tools. Their inventory continues to expand, and they also have a luxury spa there in Sarasota. You can also visit them online at theomshop.com to see their inventory, their products, their virtual learning center, and they also offer sound meditations online. I've been lucky to teach some trainings at their beautiful shop and have some coming up in 2021 as well, and it truly is one of my favorite spots in the world. So please do check the Om Shop out, and thank you so much to the Om Shop for their sponsorship. Please enjoy this episode with Elian Zach. So let's paint a story. If you could tell us a little bit about your background, perhaps a bit about your life before the work that you do now. Where are you from? What brought you to the States? And all those adventures.
Well, I actually just marked 15 years in the city in New York.
Wow.
Just a few days ago, on September 11th actually was my move date,
Oh, wow.
September 11th, 2005. And I originally moved to the States from my native Israel to go study theater. So I was a child actor in Israel, and I believed that this was my calling and my purpose in life was to be on stage. Primarily theater, but also film and television were really my main interests, and I came here to go to a conservatory, which is what I initially did when I first moved here. And after I graduated, and I worked a lot mostly in theater in New York. I woke up one morning without any project in sight, and I realized that I wasn't really sure if this was my art, if I would risk anything to do this, and if I were okay with being an actor if success wasn't a guaranteed, and and that sent me on a new exploration, because when I realized this was not really my deepest truth, I decided to go ahead and explore and find out what was. And that sent me back to school to finish my undergrad, that I put on pause to go to my conservatory. And um, I started writing as a professional for profession for a few years, mostly creative nonfiction pieces, but also interviews and fashion and art and copywriting a little bit, and just finding a way to express. And writing, if I take a little a cross referencing, writing is essentially language, and language is words, and words are sound. So at the end of the day, that I was always drawn to that, whether I was an actor, a singer, or a writer. There was always that part that always resonated. No pun intended, but sure, why not? So I did that for a while, and throughout my schooling, and throughout, actually, from the moment I got to New York. So this, like, about a year into my time in New York, I was always practicing yoga, asana, and it became my solace, kind of like the place where I processed everything when I was and was not in therapy. This was kind of like my place of integration, of really getting in touch with emotions, which is something that for me isn't second nature, especially when it comes to emotions that are not as pleasant. So I always kind of like reverted to not really dealing. And the yoga mat was a place for me to really integrate, and to really feel, and to really be in my soft uh, parts. And I was kind of like in between things and writing, but not really sure, and not really willing to let go of my actor identity quite yet. And my then home studio announced that they were having a teacher training, and I decided to go for it, and take the training. And something really magical happened the first time I taught yoga. I felt like I was really home. It's like, oh, I could really do this. This feels absolutely right to me. And it was kind of a culmination of everything that I had ever done, kind of coming together in this beautiful way. The spiritual exploration, this sense of being a part of something bigger than myself. Um, a little dash of performance, of course. As a teacher, you have to be compelling, um, uh, and have some harnessed presence, which is something that after 20 years in on stage, I basically had um, a very intimate relationship with. And it felt really, really incredible, really incredible feeling. Oh, I think I found it, capital I. And this was the gateway drug, really,
Right.
into a whole new set of of principles, really, of guiding stars, as to what was meaningful to me, and what my efforts were now um, directed toward. Um, should I go on, or should
Right.
is this
Right.
is this
Yeah. So
is
that's a
this a
great,
good enough answer? Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
great bridge to, what led you to all the other aspects and all the other paths. So what type of yoga was that?
It was
Mm-hmm.
vinyasa yoga. That's how I started. That's my main practice. It's what really turns me on. I like the freedom in that movement. I like the connection of breath and movement. I like the creativity that comes with vinyasa, and the fact that it's kind of like the bastard child of yoga. It doesn't it doesn't claim to be the original of anything or the one and only philosophy or the one and only methodology. And I really like that humility that comes with the vinyasa practice. The femininity of the movement, I really enjoy that. But at the same time, over the years, I've also learned and studied other kinds of yoga and other forms of movement that have influenced and inspired my vinyasa. So I'm really inspired by Iyengar yoga and Katonah yoga, and by the teachers that I've studied with over the years in New York. I really think New York is one of the most remarkable places to study yoga because of the incredible teachers that have found their way here, from Nevine Michaan to Rodney and Colleen Saidman, and the Iyengar Institute. So there's just so much to learn here. So yeah, I've been having a good time.
Gosh, I mean, that's true about sound in New York. You know, we haven't gotten to that aspect of it really yet. Is that some of the great teachers and mentors are centered there as well. So, yeah, how, I guess, did you go directly into teaching yoga at a studio, or what were you led to next after that teacher training experience?
Yeah, I started teaching at my home studio at the time. That was Yoga to the People, and soon after got jobs at other studios around the city and started teaching privately. And I really relished and enjoyed every moment of that because it really brought together. The yoga that I started teaching was very much sonic and music driven, so there was always like a musical component to uh, the class and a threaded theme throughout. So I started developing the way that I liked to learn as the form of teachings that I liked to share. And it was beautiful because, as a young person, you believe that you know everything, and then as an older person, you realize that you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So there was like this precociousness to the beginning of my journey as a yoga teacher, that I'm like, oh, I have this down. This is awesome. I'm awesome. And
Sure,
and
sure.
and then slowly discovering that I didn't really know much, and that a deepening must occur in order for me to be a teacher that I actually respect. I needed to have some mentors in my people that I admire and I want to learn from. And I think that was a tipping point in my teaching, because I was teaching so much with not much fuel behind me, because I didn't have, I did one teacher training and I was kind of like launching into this quote unquote career as a yoga teacher. But then I found who then became the yoga director at Womb Center, Francesca Bove. I took a training with her at a studio that she used to teach before she started teaching at Womb. And I realized that I didn't really know much, and that I have much more to learn, and that it's actually a really exciting process. And I wanted to be engaged in that. Um, so yeah, and Francesca also introduced me to her teachers and to her inspirations, and it just became this really fertile ground for growth all around. As I brought into her life the sound practice, she brought into my life the deepening of the yoga practice in the fashion that I couldn't even fathom such a harmonious form of learning, where one of my absolute best friends, who became my, like a family member, like a sister, also became my teacher, mentor, and just opened up her entire world um, to me so generously. And that was just such a beautiful synergy and an exchange between us. Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't that the fun part, that the learning truly is limitless. Once we realize that we haven't learned it all, that's where it gets fun and it gets
That
exciting,
is
that
very
we can
true.
just continue to deepen. And so, let's kind of trace the path along. What was, the next step that got deeper? Was it into breath work, or did sound come next? And
Um, well, I would say, I don't know if this is something that you touch upon, but I would say psychedelics were
mm-hmm.
the next step for me.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a cool topic for you.
Well, oh,
I,
absolutely, and very much
okay, good.
that sound practices are have psychedelic properties themselves. So yeah,
100%.
absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely.
so I would say the psychedelic experience is what led me on the further exploration, is really what took the yoga as the form of union, of non-duality, a practice or an observation of non-duality as like a concrete um, path.
Mm-hmm.
And my experiences at Burning Man as well, um, which are psychedelic by nature, even when there's no substance involved, just
Sure.
by virtue of the space and the state of consciousness. So I would say an exploration of consciousness, the nature of consciousness, and the self with a capital S that have become the focal point of my life. And sound practice, I would say, sound practice came a bit before my exploration of breath, even though pranayama, the yogic breathing, was a part of my training and something that I was always interested in and I explored. At the same time, psychedelics leading into my interest in the nature of consciousness and in sound as the at the basis of the nature of consciousness were truly the way that I the kind of like the thread and it was through a psychedelic experience via immersion and sound that I became interested in it. I didn't even know that sound therapy was a thing. Um, but I had a very deep, it was actually a cannabis ingested cannabis experience that I had maybe 6 years ago. So not, not the most powerful
Right.
psychedelic, right? But still super powerful. And coming together with electronic music, actually, which is not mine, wasn't initially my kind of background. I as a creator, I've always made acoustic um live music, voice, and I was a rocker chick when I was a little younger. So it
Mm-hmm.
was, and the electronic music is something that I didn't really understand the value of. But then in this particular moment, something about the music, and I guess the nature of that particular sound system that I was listening to, and the compound that I ingested, something about that moment was really profound, and it brought to my awareness a few questions. Well, not answers, but questions instead. And the questions were: what does sound do to our consciousness? Why do we even dance? Why are we so compelled by music? And is there any value of taking this setting, of this party setting that I was observing, um, and transforming the movement instead of spontaneous dance movements, and kind of like um, um, allowing it to dawn the profound system of yoga asana instead. So instead of just moving spontaneously, what if we had the sound system surrounding yoga asana movement?
Mm-hmm.
Would that in any way be of value? And I wrote to myself, is there an expert about this, question mark? Who should I talk to about this? Is this a neuroscientist or a neurosurgeon or an
Mm-hmm.
orthopedic surgeon? What's the effect on the body, on the skeletal muscular system, the nervous system, the brain? What's going on with this idea of sound vibration. What's the deal? And then I started sharing my newfound interest with my close people. And a really good friend of mine, Alessandra, told me, well, I know the guy for you, after I shared this new query I had. And she said, his name is Alexandre Tannous, and he's an ethnomusicologist, sound researcher, and sound therapist who's been conducting research in 40 different countries on thousands of people. And I'm going to put you in touch with him. And she put us in touch. And 2 weeks later, I found myself on the floor of a Brooklyn space with about 100 other people, blindfolded, and going into a sound meditation experience, my first sound meditation experience. And what happened to me that day, or that night rather, was it was my first experience in ceremonial setting. And I would say my life could be divided into two until that moment, and from that moment on. Because I think what really got pronounced in that particular experience was my relationship to my own voice, which I had used in so many ways over so many years professionally. Had a good amount of guilt and shame about it, that my acting conservatory and other voice teachers have made it clear that something about my voice was not entirely okay and not entirely healthy, and constantly tried to change it. And every time I would step into a performance, I felt like there was tension that I didn't mean for, but it was there, and I didn't really know how to release it, didn't really know what to do with it. And over that experience, I had this release in the voice, and I was able to hear myself for the first time so very clearly, and enjoy and relish in my own voice for the very first time. And I don't even know how many years, or maybe ever. And it was a humbling experience. It was profoundly psychedelic and revealing and intense physically and emotionally. And I knew that I needed to be doing this. I wanted to be doing this. And I didn't know that I was going to be a sound therapist myself. I actually, my former partner and ex-husband, who was my co-founder at Womb Center, or he's forever my co-founder, when he came to retrieve me from that ceremony, I said, well, let me tell you, I don't know about me, but I have a strong sense that you will be doing that for the rest of your life. And sure enough, that's exactly what he's doing now. He facilitates ceremonies, sound ceremonies. He's a sound practitioner, and together we founded Womb Center, that is New York's first multi-sensory yoga and meditation studio that's based primarily on the therapeutic and psychedelic properties of sound vibration.
Right.
So kind of like taking everything that I experienced inside and giving it physical dimension. The visuals that I saw, I wanted to project them on the walls, and so we did. And exploring scent and sound in not only using the overtone rich instruments like gongs, singing bowls, tuning forks, but also a very rich sound system that we created with an incredible acoustics engineer by the name of Terence Calkins, who's also a Zen Buddhist. So it's such a nice combination, right? Someone who's that is a 3D sound system that envelops the practitioner in rich tones coming from the floor, the ceiling, and an 11 projector visual installation that displays sacred geometry and
Wow.
and nature drone footage of the sea and the sky and the trees, and everything that we're missing here in New York, but is completely present in our imagination, in our memories. And a scent, an essential oil blend co-created with an incredible bioalchemist by the name of Michel Gagnon, who is just a fairy of just a little fairy, sprinkling her magic dust all over the city. So we've made, I don't want to say externalize the psychedelic experience, but kind of made it accessible
Mm-hmm.
to all in New York for even an hour at a time.
Right.
And with this experience, with this facility, with the womb itself, the space itself, we have developed three primary experiences: the womb yoga experience, womb sound, womb breath experience, and womb sound experience. That is kind of like the culmination of all of them together. It's a 3 hour long experience. And um and yeah, and I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now at womb.
Well, I have to say that of all the people that your friend could have recommended about your experience, your questions, Alexandre Tannous was the the right person. I mean, he's really
Absolutely.
just so well respected and so knowledgeable. And then you did training with him as well. So was he able
Correct.
to ask your kind of answer your questions that you initially had during that experience?
My questions almost became irrelevant by the time I started diving into this work. Yes, there are some questions that were answered. Yes, I know more, and Alexander became a very good friend of mine. We collaborate on Womb Sound School, which is the training at Womb that we do 3 to 4 times a year. We
Mm.
have two different modules, and the studying never ends,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, he was able to answer, but those questions became irrelevant. They were replaced with new
Yeah.
questions that became super exciting, and yeah, and more practical. Now it moved from theory into practice, and now how
Mm-hmm.
um became the most interesting part for me.
Well, I guess then a couple questions then. How do you think it is that sound shifts our consciousness?
Oh my God. Well, let's start with like the basic.
Mm-hmm.
When we listen, we okay, so okay, let's take it back a little bit. There's this beautiful quote by Mark Nepo that my friends Josh and Eliza of the dojo upstate, I don't know if you've heard of
Mm-hmm.
this place. So they're two of my very, very, very close friends, and they introduced me to this quote, and I feel like it's a life-changing piece of writing. To listen is to lean in softly, with a willingness to be changed by what we hear.
Mm.
When we truly listen, instead of repeating old stories and narratives and truths that we are certain of, we have this opportunity to expand and to change. Um, and this is at the basis of sound affecting consciousness, in my opinion, is the spontaneity, the what's the exact word I'm looking for? The adaptability of consciousness as as it becomes focused, soft focus on a point of reference. And I can speak about the nature of overtones as well. Mitch Noor talks about this Yale study that found a filter in the right above the left ear in the auditory cortex, of the brain that both humans and a couple of other species, I think within them are dolphins, share. And this filter is thought to be the one through which we receive the harmonic spectrum of sound. And this study concludes that this filter, or harmonics rather, are our form of communion or communication with source, with the divine. So there's a correlation between the harmonic spectrum that is both, it's basically a mathematical ratios made audible, and we can see this also in nature in various forms in plants, and the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, et cetera, also visual or kind of, I guess visual representations of harmonics. And I don't remember why I started telling you about this. Okay, so we're talking about listening
right.
So when we maintain focus on listening, on harmonics, something opens up and we become malleable in light of what is. Whereas when we repeat whatever it is that we already know, there's no movement. It's stagnation. Nothing really takes place. It's kind of like the hamster in the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
We keep grinding the same information over and over again. And the idea behind it is really to get a little bit closer to the nature of reality, and the nature of reality is really the nature of consciousness. Nature of consciousness means the nature of self. What is the observing I? Not my personality or my identity that I very carefully try to construct, but rather the observing entity that sees, observes, witnesses the occurrence of everything. And through our words, I would say this is the grossest layer of this practice of listening. The voice, speaking language, we speak things into existence. Without speaking and contextualizing, so right, there's thought, word, and deed. Deed would be the grossest, right, action, whatever it is that we do. But everything that we say, the sounds that we make, when we speak, not only do we affect whoever it is that we're speaking to, but we ultimately are continuously affecting ourselves with our own words, because no matter how many people I listen to, the person that I'm listening to and that I'm hearing the most is myself. And that goes into the relationship to the self. What is this relationship? What is the dialogue that is taking place between myself and me? And this is also of a high sonic importance, if in my current understanding, because over the years I've had not so pleasant conversations with myself. If I had to be completely honest, I had this notion that I had this self-love thing down. It's like, I got this. This is not something that I need to work on particularly. When the truth is, this is lesson number one that I find that I constantly need to revisit and revisit and revisit.
Yeah.
And this is highly, and if we go back to subtler layers of the relationship, I go back to thoughts, and thoughts are also conversation. It's always clarifying and clarifying and clarifying the present moment to the self. And what is this conversation all about? What is taking place inside the box? And is there a way to blend the heart and the brain
and the gut, the belly, right? All three centers of intelligence that we have, but in our modern Western world, we put increasing emphasis on what's going on in the brain, how the brain is processing, or the mind, rather. You know what? I'll take it back. I'll say the mind, the thinking mind. We're told to be rational. We're told to think things through, and very little attention is put on our emotions and also on our intuition. How do we perceive? What is the gut telling us? And the voice, which is the physical manifestation of thought, is really the blend of all three of those centers, right? The belly is the support of the voice of the instrument. That's where things stem from. The voice is produced in the belly, and then it travels through the resonance of the heart and channels through the throat into the mouth, bringing in codes from the brain. So there's this unique opportunity with word, with voice, to produce a truth that is so multi-layered, that is absolutely simple and pure. It's like the culmination of every single thing that we are, if we're aware of it, that can come through from the voice. And then it also, if we take that a step further, when we start cultivating this deep love, unconditional, for the self, cultivating a communication that is healthy and soft and gentle with the self, then that extends outward. And then instead of waiting for someone else to finish speaking so we can state our piece and sound smart or win the argument or whatever it is that we constantly try to do, we have this sensitivity to whatever it is that's coming my way from that person who's speaking to me, whether it's a loved one or a teacher or a stranger on the street. It has now the capacity to change something about me and change my response in such a way that I am in constant flow with whatever it is that's truly happening in the present moment. And this is what really meditation is all about, is rooting us back into the infinite nature of the present moment, and that nothing aside for that exists. And in listening, we are constantly rooted in the now. Because when we're not listening, when we're engaged in thought of what am I going to respond to that, we're not in the present moment. We're either thinking about the future or dwelling in the past, also known as anxiety and depression.
Right.
So I don't know. I may have gone like on a tangent here, but I feel like it's
beautiful.
Kind of like...
Beautiful description, and it got me thinking about really what you said is why toning, vocal toning is so powerful. Not only personal toning for yourself, for your own heart, for your own resonance, but kind of the different aspects when you're toning with a group of people.
Exactly.
Which
is that we find ourselves when we tone, when we practice this, right? We find ourselves in a few different realms of existence. There's the expressive parts, right? We use our voices not just to communicate verbally, and that's the beauty of vocal toning, that the words are no longer a limitation. But we use voice in so many sacred, and I use this word sparingly, but in sacred practices, in our joys, in our fears, we cry with the voice, we make love with the voice, we pray with the voice, we laugh with the voice. So the voice is really, so when we tone, we have an opportunity really to express what is actually going on in the present moment. That's one. And then there's the I am important, I am significant piece to this, because no one in the world sounds exactly like me. I am this It's like a fingerprint. My voice is like a fingerprint. No one else is just like that. And that's really powerful. It means that if I'm in a group of people and I choose not to share my own unique gift, the circle is not going to be the same. So it gives us responsibility for our contribution. Is I need to contribute, I'm important, and how do I contribute? What is my form of contribution to this group? And then on the other side of that is I am part of something much greater than myself. I am supported by this. So I have this seesaw experience between sharing and receiving constantly in the vocal toning, paradigm. Is really it's beautiful, because I feel like normally there's very little dissonance in those practices, because people are really in their vulnerability. Using the voice is such a vulnerable practice. And when ego enters the equation, we immediately can feel that on ourselves, like, oh, I'm pushing now. This is not effortless. This is not it. And we get to really enjoy each other without distraction of what that thing looks like. It's no longer a performance. We do this like when we pray, or when we kiss, or when we eat something yummy. We do that with our eyes closed. It's this moment of relishing everything that is. And it's really a practice of the here and now, because we create this beautiful symphony of intention that never repeats. It happens once and it never repeats. It's kind of like the construct of the clouds in the sky. Take a mental picture of it, because this is it. This is now is all you have. Now is all we have. And that's why I love the sound practice so much, because it's this unrehearsed, deeply studied, deeply practiced, but unrehearsed orchestration of powerful forces, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Of people receiving the energy, and the energy moving from the people and into the practitioner. And this goes both from the listening experience and from the toning experience. I find those to be kind of like mirror images of one another.
Right. That's very well articulated. Yeah. Yeah, I want to ask you a couple questions about breath work. I know that's so important to what you do, and I have no knowledge of the holotropic technique. I don't know if that's something that you continue to practice, but if you could just explain what that is a little bit, and what makes it unique and powerful.
Surely, I love speaking about that. So, holotropic breathwork is a technique that was created by Dr. Stanislav Grof and Christina Grof. Dr. Stan Grof is a Czech psychiatrist and one of the first people to experiment with LSD on live subjects back in the 60s. And late 60s, I believe it was, the American government shut his LSD research down for obvious reasons. LSD became a Schedule I drug, and it was no longer legal to be used in any capacity. And Dr. Grof and his wife decided to find a way to explore consciousness and to map out the psyche that would be accepted and received by the medical community, by the Katonah spiritual community, and also by the authorities. And they came up with this breathing technique that uses circular breath. Very simply put, it's deep and more rapid inhale and exhale, while blurring the lines between inhale and exhale, so there's no pause at the top of the inhale and no pause at the bottom of the exhale. Because essentially the breath is constructed of two chapters: it's inhale, pause, or pregnant pause, exhale, pause, or empty pause. So we kind of eliminate the pauses and create a circular, continuous breathing pattern for a very extended period of time. The holotropic breathing technique is practiced traditionally for 3 hours, and it includes evocative musical playlists, partner work, group discussions following and drawing mandalas. There's a real system behind it that was created by the couple, but breath work at its essence and this circular breathing has been practiced by many ancient societies, like shamanic societies of South and Central America, the ecstatic Kabbalists, of course, the yogis, have all dabbled in this these consciousness expanding practices. And we know just by language alone that the soul or the spirit and breath are interwoven and connected. I'm as I said in the beginning, I'm Israeli, and my native language is Hebrew. And in Hebrew, super ancient language without any coincidences in it, and the word for soul and the word for breath are nearly the same. So soul is neshama and breath is neshima. Like nearly the same word. Yeah. So there's an interconnectedness between the nature of the self and the breath. And it is, I believe, a portal into non-ordinary, or what I like to say, extraordinary states of consciousness. And it acts very much like a psychedelic compound. And it has the capacity to present information to us. And in my understanding at this point in life, there's really nothing that takes place outside of us. Our consciousness is pure space, illuminating information, and we have everything stems from inside of us. So we have this greater access while breathing in these fashions to attain a wider view of the nature of reality, very much like in the psychedelic experience. This is no magic pill, so it requires effort. There are some startling side effects to it that people might not be super keen on experiencing perhaps at times, because, very much like, an ayahuasca ceremony, for instance, in which there is some significant turmoil. Right. The same thing happens in the holotropic breathwork. The body begins to become compromised in ways. We feel tension, pressure, a sense of loss of control that could be startling for people. But at the end of the day, it's rather safe. And some people I wouldn't recommend maybe to go to have these experiences. For instance, people like pregnant women, I wouldn't, though I know there are some breathwork facilitators who have no issue with pregnant women having these experiences. People with acute asthma, with cardiovascular issues, I would say maybe consult someone about it before getting into an experience. But at the end of the day, it's a rather safe methodology for self-exploration. It's so powerful and so effective. And, even if you engage in this breath work, even within 3 minutes, you already feel a shift in the self and the awareness and the body. And it's very, very powerful. So we like at Womb to combine modalities in honor, while keeping reverence, or holding reverence, I guess, to the practices and where they stem from. We use instruments from all over the world, and they're not necessarily related to each other, like a gong and a drum, for instance. They don't come from the same lineage, but there is a correlation between them. So we also mix the breathwork practice with the sound practice, with the toning practice, and everything together really works together in perfect harmony, creating a very powerful experience.
Just each enhances each other. Yeah. And during this time, as far as what you've been doing, it's such an important time, and you see more and more people immersing themselves in sound and yoga and breath work. Have you been able to do events recently at all, or is it virtual or on hold, or how are you all managing right now?
Yeah, it's currently virtual. I don't even know how we're managing, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It's moment to moment kind of experience. I'm not entirely sure where it's all going to go. Rolling with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
Currently working on an on-demand platform that will offer on-demand yoga and sound. I find that doing breath work virtually is irresponsible. I know there are some breathwork practitioners who do this. I choose not to facilitate breathwork.
Yeah.
I would do pranayama, and I have taught pranayama, but breathwork, holotropic, rebirthing, all of this stuff, I would like to be there with the people and make sure that I can crisis manage if there is any crisis to be managed. And just the thought of people laying in their homes doing breathwork by themselves without anyone watching over them and making sure that they're safe, I just find that to be absolutely irresponsible.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, we have been doing virtual. We've been operating on Zoom since March,
Mm-hmm.
and now the on-demand platform is coming up, and we have been doing sound events, both our own womb sound experience variations online, as well as some guest practitioners from all over the country. So yeah, it's been going on. I don't know where this is all leading, but yes, it has been going on.
Right. I was going to say, hopefully, once in-person things can happen again, you'll just be able to have that mix, have that offering that you do have on demand, but will also be able to have in person.
Definitely. And I'm also planning on, because New York is currently not open at all, at least not group classes are not permitted. But in Miami, everything is open, and there's a really vibrant community in Miami for self-exploration. So within the next couple of months or so, I'm going to be moving back and forth between New York and Miami,
mm-hmm.
offering some stuff there. So I'm really excited about actually doing stuff in person again and not through screens. Not that it hasn't been a gift, but it's I miss the people. I miss seeing the people.
Yes. That energy and connection. And you've kind of, through this conversation, you've talked so much about learning and getting deeper. So I'm curious what is coming forth right now that you're really excited about learning or working on more.
That's such a great question. So I got injured I got injured in about May, pretty severely in my right foot. And I wasn't able to walk for about 4 months, actually. I started walking recently again. And that really changed the trajectory of my interest, because I couldn't practice yoga asana at all. I couldn't even stand. And I was basically asked by the universe to sit and listen.
Right.
And I really wanted some form of inspiration to come my way. And sure enough, I found this really incredible musician / comedian / Buddhist teacher who started conducting Zoom classes on Kadampa and Tibetan Buddhism. And this is my most recent exploration and study is Buddhism, because coming from a yogic background, I was mostly immersed in Hinduism and mythology, and always had kind of like a love-fear relationship with Buddhism, because I just didn't know much about it, and it seemed like a little bit non-romantic enough for me. And so I decided to kind of like give it a go. And I've been doing this for about 2 months now, studying with Daniel, studying Buddhism and learning Buddhist meditations. And so this is one thing that I'm quite interested in. And the second thing that I still haven't found my teacher, but maybe you have some recommendations. I think I would like to start learning more about Tantra.
Oh, yeah. Well, Christopher Wallace. Do you know Christopher Wallace?
I do not.
Oh, yeah. I can send you a couple links. He's excellent. I've taken a couple of his courses. What's that great book? Yeah, I'll have to dig that out of my brain. But I think you would really like him. Christopher Wallace. Yeah. And he's the guy, I don't know if you've ever read that he wrote this blog post that goes around that's like the real story or the true story of the chakras and the chakra system. That's gone around and kind of explores the modern take that there's 7 chakras, and he's a Sanskrit scholar, and he kind of goes in depth with that. But yeah, his tantric courses, he has some virtual ones that are really good. So I'll send you some
right.
stuff.
I trust that you're going to share this information with me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's something that you want to look into as well. Yeah.
Yes, for
awesome.
sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much. This has been really
Thank you.
excellent. I just really appreciate you and your hunger to learn and explore all this. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, take care. I'll talk to you
so
soon.
Much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sound Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com. Check things out on Facebook at Sounds Heal Studio, and you can listen to all previous podcasts as well as music meditations on the YouTube channel at Sounds Heal Studio. Be well and stay tuned.